take it every morning, everyone. Yeah, I had a rough day yesterday. I had to have the cat put down, right? The day before, actually. It was a place out on the Gabroos Highway, right? They were really, really nice, right? Yeah. Every time I ever get close to, you know, what I mean, there's, I don't, you guys know me. I don't say anything bad about anybody on Facebook at all, right? You know what I mean? You can't go back and find one situation where I bully anybody or say anything at a taste or anything bad or you can't find nothing, right? It's like, and I think it's because that, right? Because of that, right? You know what I mean? That they just go back and they look for something. The minute that I'm close to being able to be monetized, right? Because I can be, right? I have everything's there to be monetized, right? But the minute I'm able to, and there's no restrictions on me, they'll go back through everything. And if it's anything that just, even if this is what I posted, I said, folks, there's a new drug out there. I said, well, actually, not new, but I said that is just as addictive as Xanax. I said it's called Zopiclone. Because when you try to, you know what I mean? When you, yes, or if you don't have them, you go through the same thing as somebody who's going through a benzo withdrawal, or which is Xanax, right? And you will hear the same stories from everyone else, right? It's just, you know, me, yes, just sharing my experience like everyone else does. And that's what they restrict me for, but they allow on there, right? But the thing is that they monetize and allow their advertisements to take place on people who are barely 20 years old, or half naked, right? That's allowed, right? But a man sharing his grief or sharing his, experience about, or what he's facing with health wise, to the point where people think that he's lying or faking, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Last month it was this, but if they took 5 minutes to pick, to do some research, they would see how they all, you know what I mean? They would understand the connection out right away, right? But they don't take 5 minutes to even do an ounce of research. They judge you, right? And that's it, right? That you're lying or something, right? No, I don't. I guarantee it. That yes, you know what I mean. I guarantee you, when they do my autopsy, it's going to come back CTE, and I would say ALS or MS or one of those neurological disorders where the person barely. I feel like Michael, what Michael J. Fox talks about how he was falling apart on the inside. You know what I mean? And his legs and stuff wouldn't, work and stuff, right? Yeah. Well, that's what I go through, right? Facebook restricted my account because I was close to monetization, right? Every time that it comes up where I can monetize, right? Yeah, they just restrict me. It doesn't, you know what I mean? Yeah, drop you into a pit of loneliness, right? Just more alone than you've ever been, right? Now that you don't even have a cat to keep you company, right? There's just some people that just they rely on Facebook as that's where they can communicate. That's where they can socialize. You try to socialize around here on a street corner, and you're gonna end up in a fist fight in about 5 seconds. Or even if you don't, if fighting's not, even if fighting's not your thing, you're still gonna have somebody who's gonna be in a bad mood that's just gonna try to take it out on you, right? So you stay in your house, right? So you know what I mean? There's not, I make $150 after my rent is paid, right? So I started making dance videos, and right, they don't like that idea, right? You know what I mean? Of you trying to, you know what I mean? Yeah. Anytime that I've ever tried to make it, anytime I ever try to make a start in my life, and I know that sounds cynical, but I'm just telling the truth, and you can. Other people will say, yeah, we've seen it too. We've seen it happen to you. You know what I mean? But I still don't give up, right? But sometimes I'm wondering, right? Like, am I a fool, right? You know what I mean? For not giving up, when most people would have just given up, right? Am I a fool for doing that, right? You know, I don't know what, you just make it. You have no idea what how they have heard they made it in the comments that people will post, right? Without knowing anything, right? They don't know anything about any facts or nothing, right? Pertaining to a situation, and they'll just go put their 2 cents in there, right? And I've seen people say some of the most horrible, mean things to other people, and they're never restricted for it.